Emily Davis smoothed down her simple blue dress as she walked into the Imperial Grand Hotel, her heart beating with anticipation. Today was her daughter Lily's wedding day, and despite everything, she couldn't help but smile. The lobby gleamed with marble and crystal, exactly the kind of venue her future son-in-law's family would choose. "Mom!" Lily's voice rang out across the lobby. Emily turned to see her daughter, still in her casual clothes, hurrying toward her. "You made it." But there was something tight about Lily's smile, a tension in her shoulders that Emily recognized all too well. "Of course I made it, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss your big day." Emily reached out to hug her daughter, but Lily took a small step back, her eyes darting around the lobby. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Lily began, wringing her hands. "Alex's family, they've made some changes to the seating arrangements." Emily's stomach tightened. She'd been expecting something like this ever since Alex's mother, Eleanor Blackwood, had taken over the wedding planning. "What kind of changes?" "They've moved you to the back table," Lily said quickly, the words tumbling out. "Near the kitchen entrance. Eleanor says it's because of the photographer's setup, but..." She trailed off, unable to meet her mother's eyes. Before Emily could respond, a sharp voice cut through their conversation. "Lily, what are you doing down here? We need you in the bridal suite immediately." Eleanor Blackwood strode across the lobby, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Her eyes swept over Emily with barely concealed disdain. "Oh, you're here." Emily straightened her spine. "Hello, Eleanor. The hotel looks lovely." Eleanor's lips curved into a cold smile. "Yes, well, we wanted everything to be perfect for Alex and Lily. Speaking of which..." She turned to Lily. "Darling, your hair appointment was scheduled for 10 minutes ago. You don't want to keep everyone waiting." Lily hesitated, looking between her mother and future mother-in-law. "Mom, I'm sorry about..." "Go on," Emily said gently. "It's your day. Don't worry about me." As Lily hurried away, Eleanor's facade dropped. "Listen," she said, her voice low and cutting. "I know Lily insisted on having you here, but let's be clear, you don't fit in with our crowd. The Blackwoods have a certain reputation to maintain." Emily kept her voice steady. "I'm here for my daughter." "Yes, and you can support her from the back of the room. We don't need your modest circumstances ruining the wedding photos. I'm sure you understand." Eleanor's smile was sharp as glass. "Oh, and we've arranged for the staff meals to be served at your table." It seemed appropriate. With that, Eleanor turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing alone in the vast lobby. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of the humiliation. She thought about the extra shifts she'd picked up at the Unity Hospital, working as a nurse to help pay for Lily's education. About the nights she'd spent helping Lily study for her medical school entrance exams, proud beyond words when she'd been accepted. Now, her daughter was marrying into the Blackwood family, owners of the largest hospital network in the state, and suddenly Emily's decades of hard work meant nothing. She found her way to the ballroom, where the wedding would take place in a few hours. The space was stunning, crystal chandeliers caught the light, fresh flowers adorned every table, and a string quartet was setting up in the corner. But as she walked toward the back of the room, she saw it, her table, partially hidden behind a large pillar, right next to the swinging kitchen doors. "Mrs. Davis?" A young woman in hotel staff uniform approached her. "I'm Chloe from Event Services. We were told you'd be seated here." Emily nodded, noticing the sympathy in Chloe's eyes. "That's right. The thing is," Chloe lowered her voice, glancing around, "I wanted to let you know, while the staff here, we all know who you are. My sister was at Unity Hospital last year when you worked that terrible 30-hour shift during the crisis. You saved her life." Emily blinked in surprise. She remembered that night, a massive pileup on the highway had overwhelmed the hospital. She'd stayed long past her shift, working until she could barely stand. Chloe continued, "we think it's wrong how they're treating you. And we wanted you to know if you need anything, just ask. The whole staff is on your side. For a moment, Emily stood there, processing Chloe's words. Then she remembered something that could change everything. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Actually, she said, a small smile playing at her lips, there is something you could help me with. But first, I need to make a call. As she dialed a familiar number, Emily watched the Blackwood family sweeping through the ballroom, directing staff and making demands. Eleanor was at the center of it all, gesturing dramatically about some perceived flaw in the table settings. Hello, David. It's Emily Davis. Remember that favor you owed me? I think it's time to cash it in. The unveiling. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of activity. Emily watched from her corner as the ballroom filled with guests, all dressed in designer clothes and dripping with jewelry. She couldn't help but notice how the Blackwood family greeted each arrival with elaborate embraces and air kisses, at least until they spotted her. Is that her? She overheard one woman whisper to Eleanor. The mother who works as a nurse. Eleanor's response was just loud enough to carry. Yes, unfortunately. But don't worry, we've managed to keep her out of sight. Can't have anything spoiling Alex's big day. Emily checked her watch. Any minute now. The first sign that something was wrong came when Chloe and 3 other servers subtly removed their uniforms, revealing street clothes underneath. They walked straight through the middle of the ballroom and toward the exit. Where are you going? Eleanor called out, her voice sharp. We haven't even served the appetizers. Chloe turned, her head held high. We quit. Before Eleanor could respond, more staff members began following suit. The bartenders packed up their tools, the valet parking attendants walked off their posts. Even the wedding coordinator closed her laptop and headed for the door. What is the meaning of this? Eleanor's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You can't just leave. We have a contract. Actually, a deep voice said from the doorway, they can. David Lee, CEO of the hotel chain, walked into the ballroom. His presence commanded immediate attention, and Emily had to suppress a smile as she watched Eleanor's expression shift from anger to confusion to desperate charm. Mr. Lee. Eleanor hurried forward. There must be some mistake. We booked this venue months ago, and now your staff is. Following my direct orders, David finished for her. He turned to address the crowded room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but the Imperial Grand will not be able to host this event today. All staff have been instructed to cease operations immediately. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Guests began murmuring. Alex's father was shouting about lawyers, and Lily, poor Lily, looked like she might faint. Mom! Lily made her way through the crowd to Emily's side. What's happening? Before Emily could answer, David spotted her and smiled warmly. Emily, there you are. Eleanor's head whipped around so fast, Emily worried she might hurt herself. You know each other? David chuckled. Emily Davis saved my daughter's life last year. Spotted a rare condition that every other doctor had missed, stayed with her through the night, monitoring her personally. He turned to Emily. I told you then, anything you need, anytime. I meant it. The pieces were starting to fall into place for the guests. Emily could see the dawning horror on Eleanor's face as she realized her mistake. But more than that, David continued, his voice carrying across the now silent room, Emily Davis sits on the board of directors for our hospital group's charitable foundation. She's been instrumental in directing millions in funding to underprivileged communities. When she called to tell me how she was being treated at her own daughter's wedding, he shook his head. Well, let's just say the Imperial Grand doesn't associate with that kind of behavior. Lily stared at her mother, tears in her eyes. Mom, I had no idea. Why didn't you ever say anything? Emily squeezed her daughter's hand. Because I wanted you to make your own way, sweetheart. I never wanted my connections to influence your choices. She paused, looking around the room. But I also won't let anyone treat us like we're beneath them. This is ridiculous. Eleanor's voice was shrill. You can't just shut down our wedding. Do you know how much we spent? Oh, I'm not shutting it down, Emily said calmly. She nodded to David, who gestured to the staff waiting by the doors. They began wheeling in new serving carts, and a fresh team of waiters entered the ballroom. I'm taking over. Eleanor's mouth opened and closed soundlessly as Emily continued. The wedding will proceed if Lily and Alex still want it to, but under new management and new seating arrangements. Alex, who had been watching everything unfold in stunned silence, finally stepped forward. Mrs. Davis, I'm so sorry. I had no idea my parents were treating you this way. He turned to Lily. And I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you and your mom sooner. Lily looked between her fiancé and her mother, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm sorry too. I should have said something. No more apologies, Emily said firmly. This is still your day. Let's make it a good one. She turned to the gathered guests. Everyone who'd like to stay and celebrate Lily and Alex's wedding is welcome, as long as they understand that in this room, everyone is equal. Everyone is family. The transformation that followed was remarkable. The Blackwood family, thoroughly humbled, retreated to quiet corners. The other guests, free from the atmosphere of judgment and pretense, began to relax. And Lily. Lily was glowing with pride as she looked at her mother. As the ceremony began, slightly delayed but more genuine than it would have been, Emily took her seat in the front row. Chloe, who had changed back into her uniform along with the other staff, caught her eye and winked. Emily smiled, thinking about how different this day had turned out from what she'd expected. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't about getting even, it was about standing up and showing your true worth. New beginnings. But there was still one more surprise in store for everyone. As the reception began, Emily watched the transformed atmosphere with quiet satisfaction. The string quartet played softly in the background while guests mingled freely, the former social hierarchy forgotten in the wake of the afternoon's revelations. Eleanor Blackwood sat at a table near the kitchen doors, the very one she'd assigned to Emily, looking thoroughly deflated. Her husband, Robert, kept checking his phone, no doubt trying to assess the social damage of the day's events. Emily almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Mrs. Davis? Alex approached her table, looking nervous but determined. Could we talk privately for a moment? Emily nodded, following her new son-in-law to a quiet corner of the ballroom. Alex took a deep breath before speaking. I want you to know, he began, that I've made some decisions. I'm stepping away from my family's hospital administration position. Emily's eyebrows rose in surprise. Alex, that's not necessary. It is, he insisted. I've been thinking about this for a while, actually. I went into healthcare administration because it was expected. But, he straightened his shoulders, I want to go to medical school, like Lily. I want to help people directly, the way you do. A warm smile spread across Emily's face. Lily never told me that. I never told her, Alex admitted. I was afraid of disappointing my parents. But after seeing you today, how you handled everything with such grace and strength, I realized I've been living my life trying to please the wrong people. Before Emily could respond, David Lee appeared at her elbow. Emily, there's someone here who'd like to speak with you. He gestured toward the ballroom entrance, where an elegant older woman stood waiting. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she recognized Dr. Vivian Gray, the current health commissioner for the state. Emily Davis, Dr. Gray said warmly, approaching their group. I'm so glad I could make it, even if I am fashionably late. Eleanor and Robert Blackwood, who had been watching from their table, practically tripped over themselves rushing over. Commissioner Gray. Eleanor gushed. What an unexpected honor. Save it, Eleanor, the commissioner cut her off coolly. I'm here to speak with Emily. She turned back to Emily with a smile. The board meeting is next week, and I wanted to discuss this in person. We've reviewed your proposal for the new community health initiative, and we're not just approving it, we're doubling the funding. The Blackwood's jaws dropped in perfect synchronization. But more than that, Dr. Gray continued, I'm retiring next year, and the governor has been asking for recommendations for my replacement. She gave Emily a meaningful look. I'd like to put your name forward, if you're interested. The ballroom had gone quiet again, everyone straining to hear the conversation. Emily felt Lily's hand slip into hers. She hadn't even noticed her daughter approaching. Mom, Lily whispered, you never told me about any of this. Emily squeezed her daughter's hand. I've always believed that our work should speak for itself. All those nights I was just working extra shifts, I was also building relationships, creating programs, finding ways to help more people. I never needed the recognition, I just wanted to make a difference. And that, Dr. Gray said firmly, is exactly why you're perfect for the position. Eleanor Blackwood looked like she might faint. But she's just a nurse. Just a nurse. Dr. Gray raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Blackwood, Emily Davis has done more for healthcare in this state than your entire family's hospital network. While you were planning galas and worrying about social status, she was actually saving lives and changing the system from within. Alex stepped forward. Commissioner Gray, I'd actually love to hear more about the Community Health Initiative. I'm planning to apply to medical school, Anne. Medical school? Eleanor interrupted, her voice shrill. But you're supposed to take over the family business. No, Mother, Alex said firmly. I'm going to make my own way. Just like Lily did. Just like Mrs. Davis taught her to do. A new legacy. The reception continued into the evening, but with a distinctly different tone than anyone had expected. The Blackwoods retreated to their table, their social cards thoroughly played. Meanwhile, Emily found herself surrounded by guests eager to discuss her work and vision for the future of healthcare in their state. As she watched Lily and Alex share their first dance, Emily reflected on how differently this day had turned out from what she'd feared. She hadn't set out to humiliate the Blackwoods or prove her worth. She'd simply refused to be diminished by their prejudice. Chloe appeared at her side with a glass of champagne. You know, the young server said with a grin, when my sister told me about the nurse who saved her life, she said you were some kind of angel. I think you might actually be a ninja. Emily laughed, accepting the champagne. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing tall and letting their actions speak for themselves. Later that night, as the reception was winding down, Lily found her mother alone on the hotel's terrace, looking out at the city lights. Mom, Lily's voice was soft. I'm so sorry about everything. Not just today, but I've been pulling away from you, trying to fit into Alex's world. I forgot who I am, who you taught me to be. Emily turned to her daughter, seeing not the bride in her expensive gown, but the little girl who used to fall asleep reading medical textbooks because she wanted to be just like her mom. You never have to apologize for trying to find your way, Emily said, pulling her daughter into a hug. But remember, your value isn't in who you marry or what family you join. It's in what you do, how you treat people, and the difference you make in the world. Lily wiped away a tear, careful of her makeup. I know that now, more than ever. She paused, then added with a small smile, Health Commissioner Davis? Emily laughed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Why not? After today, I'd say anything is possible. As they stood there, mother and daughter, looking out at the city together, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. The Blackwoods had tried to put her in her place, not realizing that she had built her own place, one of respect, dignity, and real accomplishment. The next morning, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from David. The staff can't stop talking about yesterday. You've become a legend at the Imperial Grand. Emily smiled as she typed her reply. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living your truth and letting others learn from it. As she set her phone down, Emily thought about all the paths that had led to this moment. Years of hard work, quiet dedication, and unwavering integrity had built a foundation that no amount of social snobbery could shake. The Blackwoods had seen her as just a nurse, not realizing that every life she touched, Every program she built, and every relationship she forged had created a legacy far more valuable than their superficial status. In the end, she hadn't needed to destroy them. She'd simply needed to stand in her own light and let the truth illuminate everything else. And as she prepared for another day at the hospital, commissioner's nomination or not, she still had patients who needed her. Emily Davis smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in proving yourself right.